Hi, my name is Marge, and I'm going to talk about UFOs. Um, UFOs have been a hot topic recently in the news. I did watch the 60 Minutes program last Sunday about the UFOs that were sighted by some military pilots, and also um, watched the Late Late Show with James Corden, in which President Obama was asked about UFOs. And I thought I would weigh in as I've had some experience. It seems to me that if we want to know about UFOs and extraterrestrials, the thing to do would be to talk to people who've either been on a UFO or who've had experience with extraterrestrials. It seems like that would be the logical thing to do. And actually, I believe that I qualify on both counts. And I just would like to tell my story. I grew up in Upper Michigan in a remote part of the country, and my first memory of having an unusual experience was when I was about 7 or 8, maybe 9 years old. I was walking through the dining room of our house, and there were many windows, and I saw something outside the windows in the dining room that scared me to death. And they were people, and they didn't look like we do. They were short, and I called them my Halloween faces. I was very scared. I ran into the hallway. There was a telephone table there, and I hid under the telephone table. And after maybe half an hour, I came out, looked out the windows, and the people were gone. Now, I don't remember this really clearly. I just remember that I was very scared. I probably need to explore that whole um, incident in hypnosis to see exactly what I can remember. But that was my first incident of seeing something unusual. The big incident in my life happened quite a few years later, and I have to say that my childhood was not a good one. I had a lot of abuse of every possible type. I was not happy. And I got through high school. I went to Interlochen in Michigan, a special high school for young people who were talented. I played the piano. When I graduated from Interlochen, I went to London to study piano with a teacher there. When I was in London, I had some kind of a breakdown. Not sure. I flew home. I was actually put on a plane to come home. Ended up in a hospital in outside of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Psychiatric Hospital. And I was put on the wing for the most disturbed cases. Um, One day I was in great psychic pain. That's all I can say. It was just the most painful part of my life. It was more serious pain. I've just had 3 major surgeries, and this pain of a breakdown was worse than I would much rather have another surgery than go through that pain. So I was in a lot of psychic pain. What I remember is that one morning after breakfast, I went into the day room and I lay down on a sofa. And as I was lying there, suddenly I found myself floating through the air up to the far left corner of the room. And my thought, I remember very clearly, was this can't be happening. I'm going through the ceiling. Even now, 50 years later, I clearly remember that thought. I got to the corner of the room, the upper corner of the room, and then I did go through the ceiling, but I was in a totally different place. Um, I was I was on a bed, and I can draw a picture of what exactly where I was and of the room that I was in. And in fact, I have drawn a picture of it for a therapist not too long ago. But I'll describe this situation. I was on a bed on the right side of the room as I faced the room. And I'm quite aware that there are people to my right in the back of the room. There was a glass enclosed space in the back of the room, and I called it the control room, and there were people, there were beings in the room. And for some reason, I couldn't see them clearly. I think they kind of cloaked themselves. They didn't want me to see them clearly, or they obscured my memories so that I wouldn't remember or track exactly what I was seeing. Anyway, I was lying on this bed, and what I do remember clearly is that there were gases flowing around me. Pastel, all pastel colors, pink, yellow, light orange, rose, um, gases. And they were flowing around me. And I just remember them. And I was very conscious of having an expanded consciousness at that point. I knew that this was different. And I knew that it was bigger and different from anything on earth. And I felt like it was ecstatic. I felt like I was in an unbelievably beautiful world. Now, I always thought okay, so the first thing is I didn't want to come back to Earth. I knew that I wasn't on Earth somehow. And I kept telling these beings who were communicating with me telepathically, saying that I had to go back. And I told them, no, I'm not going back. This is too wonderful. I'm staying. And they said, no, you're going back. And we had that discussion several times. And then I woke up back in the hospital. When I woke up, it took me some time to get adjusted to reality. It took me time to move my body around. It's almost like I had to learn to walk and to function again. One thing that did happen is that when I came back, I had no fear of death. I felt like I had died, and it was beautiful, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Now, that was 50 years ago, but I remember it as clearly as I remember what I had for breakfast this morning. I always interpreted that event as being that I died and went to heaven, and that wonderful ecstatic feeling was God. That's how I chose to remember it in the past 50 years. Now, during the pandemic, I had more time to think about things like this than I've had in the 50 years since it happened. And I started thinking about the whole incident, and I thought, wait a minute. I can draw a picture of that room and the control room and the bed that I was on and the gases. I can draw a picture of it. And the thing that is suspicious is that the walls, the ceiling, the floor, everything in the room was gray. That didn't sound like heaven. So I kept thinking about that during the pandemic and thinking, I wonder what that was. Could it possibly have been a UFO? And who were those people in the back in the glass enclosed room? And how did they get me up there? So, and I also started to question that it was God. And I thought, well, that ecstatic feeling that I had and those gases, I think they were some kind of treatment for my mental illness. Because the interesting thing was, when I got back to the hospital, I started to get better. It didn't happen all at once. It took a couple of months. But every day, I started to get better than I had been the day before. At first, there were maybe 3 minutes in the morning when I wasn't experiencing that terrible pain. Then the next day, it would be 5 minutes of reprieve. And every day, it got to be a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And after a month, the doctor who was in charge of my care decided that I could be flown back to Michigan to be closer to my family. And that's what happened. When I got to the hospital in Michigan at the University of Michigan, I continued to improve. Now, was it the Thorazine that I was put on that made the improvement? I know that an argument could be made for that, but I believe the turning point was my mysterious vacation in space. I call where I was now the hospital ship, because to me it was like having gone to a hospital in space. The beings that were in that back room, I didn't see them clearly in my memory, but I felt like they were friendly. I felt like they helped me. I felt like whatever that treatment was that I got helped me, and that I did start to get better. I don't think it was just the Thorazine. So fast forward. So in the pandemic, I was beginning to question everything that had happened to me 50 years ago. And my conclusion was that yes, I was on a UFO and I was treated for my illness. And after that treatment, and I returned or was returned to the hospital, I got better. To me, this proves, if this is true, that this did happen to me, that there are extraterrestrials, which we call aliens. There are UFOs. And interestingly, on the 60 Minutes program the other night, the government has stated categorically that yes, there are UFOs. We can't explain them, and they are UFOs, and there are extraterrestrials that have visited Earth and that know about us. Now, fast forward. During the pandemic, I was afraid of getting COVID because I'm 73, I have diabetes, I'm overweight. I just assumed if I got COVID, I would be on a vent and probably wouldn't make it. Well, on July 1st, whichever day of the week that was, in 2020, I started getting sick, and I thought I had food poisoning. I had eaten some spinach that wasn't cooked enough. So I went to bed on the 1st at night. I woke up the next morning and I felt awful. So what happened was I got up And suddenly I felt like I was struck by lightning. That's the only way I can describe it. I was in my bedroom. I was passing out. I was nauseous. I was sweating profusely. I also had very severe chills. Um, I don't believe I had a fever. I didn't have a cough. I didn't have the usual symptoms of COVID that we knew at that time. But I was sick in a way I'd never been sick before. I remember going to my bathroom and knowing that I was passing out. And somehow the thought came to me to go back and sit on my bed and to get somewhere safe so that if I did pass out, I would not fall on the floor. So I did that. Now, interestingly enough, my memory stopped at that point, and I didn't remember anything until about a week and a half later when I woke up and I was at the ER at McLaren Hospital in Lansing with some GI symptoms that were severe. When I found that in the next 2 weeks, when I remembered the day that I got sick on July the 2nd, when I woke up and was hit by lightning, quote unquote, um, when I tried to remember that day, I realized that in my memory of that day, I wasn't alone in my bedroom. There were two figures there in dark cloaks. How did they get there? They didn't come through the door. They were just there. But I didn't remember it until several weeks later. Now, they resembled the people that I had seen 50 years prior in my trip to the UFO. And my conclusion or my suspicion is that they may have saved my life. Obviously, they're a superior species to us. We don't know how to beam somebody up from a crowded day room to a spaceship. We don't know how to treat serious mental illness that I had, or at least nobody had been able to treat me for it. We don't know how to beam somebody back down to a crowded hospital day room without being detected. And I don't know, but I do feel that they intervened in my life a second time. My feeling is that they were friendly to me. I can't say that all extraterrestrials are friendly. I don't believe all are. I do believe that there are good ones and bad ones, just like our planet. There are good people and bad people. What I did do in the weeks after I got COVID was I had a session with a hypnotherapist. The main thing that happened in that session is that the hypnotherapist had me look at the aliens and to see what they look like, which I hadn't been able to earlier. I did see them, and I can tell you they don't look anything like we do or like me. I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but they did not resemble human beings. There were other things that happened in the hypnosis. But my whole experience was that they camouflaged themselves from me somehow in both times that they came into my life, and that I believe they were concerned about my feelings. They knew that if I saw them directly and saw what they looked like, I would be freaked out. And probably, yes, I would have been. now that I've had time to think about it and I had the hypnosis session, I feel like they don't look like us. So we don't look like them. So we might be just as scary to them as they are to us or to me. People say, why don't they just come and show themselves? Why don't they land and show themselves to us? And I say, really? Um, if you were an extraterrestrial and didn't look like us, would you show yourself to us? We on this planet are not exactly a friendly species. We don't even have good luck in ensuring the safety of people who do resemble us but have different skin color. So, what would we do if we were suddenly confronted with somebody who doesn't in the least bit look like us? Suppose a UFO landed somewhere near the White House, across the street, maybe. The police come, the military comes, they surround the UFO. A door opens, an extraterrestrial comes out looking much different, and the military, the police have their guns drawn because they don't know what's going to happen. The extraterrestrial makes a gesture of peace in his language or hers. But the police and the military take it as a threatening gesture. The extraterrestrial would probably get a 21 gun salute and would probably be dead. And that's how we would welcome an international visitor. So I don't blame them. I can understand why they don't land and reveal themselves to us because they know us. I am sure of that. I am sure with all their technology, they can watch our TV. They know us as a species. And they know that we will shoot first and ask questions later. So, of course not. What I do think they're doing is making appearances to isolated people here and there. I'm not the only one who talks about these experiences. There are quite a few people who have either been on a UFO or had an experience with an extraterrestrial. I'm not the only one. And I think they are gradually raising our consciousness to know that they are here. But they can't just appear to us. They wouldn't be safe. Does this scare me? No, it doesn't. I believe that these extraterrestrials that I had contact with were actually the reason they cloaked themselves from me or obscured my vision of them was that they knew I would be freaked out and they actually cared about my feelings. Now, that's not how we would treat someone of an inferior race. Like when we step on an ant, do we think about the ant's feelings? I don't think so. But I believe they were concerned about not overwhelming me emotionally. And I respect that. My interactions with extraterrestrials has been only positive and helpful to me. There was some doubt about whether I really did have COVID and may have had a heart attack. So I actually was given a heart catheterization procedure to make sure it wasn't a heart attack. And when I woke up from that procedure, the doctor said, "You have the heart of an 18-year-old." So it wasn't a heart attack. It was COVID. How should we proceed? I really think the government needs to talk to people who've had these experiences and form some kind of committee to figure out how, when the occasion arises, we're going to deal with this and how we are going to welcome them or have some kind of negotiations with them and figure out how to keep them safe because they have a lot to offer us. They have superior technology. They can heal people of things we can't heal. And again, beaming people around space is something that we haven't mastered yet. So they clearly have things to teach us. Are there destructive aliens? I don't know. I tend to believe there are good ones and bad ones. My personal belief about the aliens that I encountered is that they are not destructive. If they were going to take over our civilization and eat us or whatever, they would have done it by now. I believe their intentions are more likely to be to save us from ourselves, because actually we're not in such great shape. If you watch the news this week about the wars that are all over the planet right now and look at our nuclear arsenal, we really aren't in the best shape. So maybe we do need some outside intervention. I don't know. We don't know. There might be an interplanetary um, Geneva Convention or something like that, that if a planet does get to be dangerous, there is need to intervene. There might be something that we aren't even aware of. But anyway, that's my story and my experience with a UFO and with extraterrestrials. I would be happy to talk to anybody about it. If you have a story and want to share it, I'm happy to collect them. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. My email, which I've established just for this purpose, will be displayed at the end of this video. Again, am I afraid? Not at all. I believe this could be a really incredible start of a new chapter of our human history. All right, thank you for listening to my UFO story. And Barack Obama, I heard that you're interested in UFOs. Well, guess what? So am I. All right, have a good day, everybody.